All right, we'll go ahead and get started here. Folks can come in as they get here. But thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. I'm Katie Monahan, and I'm a communications strategist here at the Ohio Arts Council. And I am pleased to welcome you to today's webinar, Public Speaking for Artists. So this is the third and final webinar, unfortunately, in our three-part Build Your Artistic Brand webinar series with the fabulous Robin Semblest. And if you missed either of the previous two sessions on Instagram or crafting your bio and artist statement, no worries, we have recorded those. You can access those recordings by scanning the QR codes there on your screen. I will also drop links to the recordings directly in the chat here in just a minute, so stay tuned. But highly encourage you to check those out. And before we bring Robin on to present today, there are, of course, just a few housekeeping items that I need to go over. So first of all, you may have noticed that everyone is muted right now, and we do ask that you stay muted during the formal presentation just to not distract from Robin's presentation. But if you do have a question along the way, go ahead and drop it in the Q&A box there. That helps us track your questions so no one gets missed. Please use that instead of the chat to ask questions. We've set aside a few minutes for Q&A following the presentation, so we'll hold all questions until then, but definitely feel free to drop them in there along the way. And also, as a little heads up, you may have noticed that we are in meeting mode instead of Zoom webinar mode. And that is because after the presentation and the Q&A session, we will be inviting a few brave volunteers to practice their elevator pitches live here with Robin. So be thinking about that as we go along. When the time comes, we'll ask for raised hands and invite you to turn your camera on when you speak. Not yet, no pressure, but more on that when we get there. So next, live captioning is available for this webinar, and you can access those captions by clicking on the closed captioning icon in your control panel. And if you have audio issues or trouble connecting, we just recommend refreshing your browser. And if that doesn't work, try logging off and logging back in. And also, please keep in mind that because Robin and I are in different locations, there may be some variations in bandwidth or internet stability. So if the sound fluctuates or someone freezes up for a minute, thanks in advance for bearing with us. We promise we will keep on rolling through all of that. And finally, as with all of the others, we are recording this webinar, and that captioned recording will be available on our webinars page at oac.ohio.gov/webinars and on our YouTube channel by early next week. All right, that does it for housekeeping. Next, I would like to welcome today's fabulous presenter, Robin Semblest. Robin, hello, hello. Robin is a journalist, a former longtime editor of Art News, and an influential Instagrammer. Robin, we are so excited to have you back. Your previous two sessions have been fabulous and full of really wonderful information. Public speaking, it's a phrase that can strike fear into the hearts of even the most bold of us. So so glad to have you here to talk about it. The floor is yours.
Thank you for that lovely intro, Katie. And hi, everyone. Great to see you or meet you, as we like to say, in the art industry. So as you heard, I'm going to show the presentation, and then we're going to do Q&A, and then we're going to do our flash session of elevator pitches. So without further ado, I need to be able to share. Oops.
Did that work?
One moment. I don't know what happened. Oh, I know what happened. It's coming, everyone. Exciting news. Just a thumbs up if you see the usual opening page there. Thank you. Alrighty. I know it says about me, and I wrote putting yourself out there. So for those who didn't hear or weren't here all the other times, I was a journalist most of my career. And then for many years, I was the editor of Art News, and then they sold it. And I started this business that I'm still doing, but I didn't know about Zoom then. But anyway, back those 10 years ago, this was 2014, a lot of people in the art industry were still not hip to Instagram. They had barely gotten websites and so on. And beside that, I was a middle-aged editor from print, and if anyone's ever started a consulting business, whether they left their power job or not, where you're marketing yourself to the people who used to market themselves to you, it's quite challenging to put yourself out there. So I know I'm not an artist, but I'm just saying that, there come times in our careers when it's easier to, work in the studio or, say that marketing's not important, but we have to find these ways to put ourselves out there. And the more we can kind of prep ahead of time, we talked about all the different imagery and branding and iconography, whatever we're calling it, in our images, in our social media. But now we are not. Oh, right. So here's the thing. In Instagram, we were showing, not telling. The concept of the Instagram was to use all the different parts of the Instagram, including text as one smaller part in terms of all of the other editing and features of it. And here with the speaking, we're talking about telling and not showing, which is weirdly the opposite, even though you're going for the same goals and you're going to have the same message points and so on. So let us start with the elevator pitch. Your first question is, what is an elevator pitch? Well, for the purposes of this workshop, an elevator pitch is going to be a few sentences, more or less, that you're saying that convey your creative practice in the span of an elevator ride. Now, the idea of this kind of came out of Hollywood. There's a sense of this, young upstart writer, and they get in the elevator with the powerful producer, and the producer says, "Okay, kid, you got one ride to make your pitch." And the kid says, like, Star Wars meets vampires. But here in the arts, that kind of still works in the movies. I mean, I don't know about that movie, but just saying. But here in the art space, we're not necessarily doing that, because then people would be like, "Hi, I'm Robin. Who are you?" And you'd be like, "Yes, I'm an artist whose work is Cindy Sherman meets Frida Kahlo." And then the person would be like, "Cringe, bye," or not. I don't know. My point is that in the art space, it's kind of less comfortable to be able to define ourselves through the works of other people, unless that's literally what you're doing. It's all good. So we have to use our language in different ways. Now, I know you're wondering, how long is the ride? And my calculation is that in a 1964 elevator that does not have a 13th floor, we're talking about 15 to 30 seconds. But we're adaptable. So, of course, the elevator pitch is not just for elevators. You can use it at panel discussions, at conferences and art fairs, talking to the press, as we'll be speaking about, and really any encounter where someone asks, "Who are you and what you do?" including like weddings. And the reason I'm saying is that also, as we talked about with our promotional writing, when we're speaking about ourselves in public, we're trying to be accessible to people that might be outside of our normal community of artists. So we're not necessarily talking like in the studio. So if I say, "Hi, I'm Robin," and you say, "My practice is about my critique and investigation and research," we want to think a little bit more generally, back to what we do. But I got ahead of myself. But there's no spoken word when you're doing your elevator pitch. I know you could pull out your phone in the elevator, but say you're on a Zoom, right? So we usually have no video, no visuals, usually no audio, right? And we want it to sound natural. We don't want it to sound like we've memorized our bio from our website when we're saying what we're doing, right? We're trying to sound like it's in conversation, whether it's a formal interview or in an elevator encounter. So I have come up with a formula I call the ABC formula, because I do like to have my formulas. Okay, ready? A is for about you. So the first one, and you might recognize some of this from the other classes, right? The first is going to be, who are you? Because the art does not make itself. So this might be, just as we saw in our Instagram bio, our personal identity, right? Nash, where we're from, our cultural identity, gender, where we're based now. It might be our main creative identity, painter, filmmaker, performer, and so on. And then it might also be our professional identity if you are a student or a teacher or a member of an ensemble or a resident in a certain place, right? So that's the who are you. Then there's the what do you do part. We're still in A, by the way, about you. So these are the defining qualities of your creative practice. And I do like to say essential and distinctive qualities because sometimes there are other people working in a similar space and we want to say why people should be interested in us, right? Because we have distinctive qualities as well. So the first thing is going to be, what do you make? The same thing with the writing. We're literally starting not with what it's about. Again, there's going to be variations, but this is the easiest way, according to me. What do you make? So what are the defining media, process, subject, and source? I know that's a lot, right? So in other words, you can say interdisciplinary or you can say multimedia, but that's not giving that much information. So if you could pull out the defining qualities of it, it depends what you're doing in terms of the materials or the stories and so on, right? You're going to pick maybe 5 things. Then we have what does it look like, right? Also comes up in the writing. So I wrote the main visual or sensorial qualities or style. So think about this. If you have painting that's expressionistic and it's super textured with like waves of impasto that looks like toothpaste or whatever, that's a tactile quality. Like you feel like if it has something you feel like you can touch it, it's still stimulating the sense of touch. So anyway, the point is, what does it look like? What's the style? Is it expressionistic or satirical or operatic? And again, whatever makes it distinctive if you've come up with something new. And again, we want to think about using active language. So rather than saying my work is about, my practice is about, you're saying I make this and I do this, which is also the advice from the writing. B. B is called busy with. Okay, so the first one is going to be, what are you promoting? Now, this is going to be slightly different from your artist bio because your bio probably wouldn't have what you're promoting in the right there up in the front, so to speak. But when we meet people for the first time, if you have something that's going on, you would want to make sure to tell that. If you have a show or you're in a group show or something like that, you might want to mention that. Now, if you don't have that, no worries. You're always doing something. You're always sketching or recording or writing, rehearsing, right? And we have the tools, materials, and process, which, as we learned in the Instagram and writing classes, reveal so much about the meaning of the work before we even get there. I call C creative aspirations. Why do you do it? Right now, by this time, if we have said what it looks like, all of the tools and materials and the process, hopefully and the inspiration and the content, hopefully we've begun to signal the intention. So the intention of an artist might be to create beauty, right? I'm going to create scenes of nature that are so tranquil, they're going to remove you from the moment and put your mind completely at ease. Or you might be challenging concepts of beauty, whatever that means to you. You might have goals that are formal in terms of the way that you paint colors or abstraction, or maybe you're doing a series of different objects. So it's, one could go on, etc. So that's kind of one level of intention. And then there's the intention if your work is kind of more, on a social justice level, or are if you're painting, for example, are you painting people in history that kind of got disappeared from traditional narratives? Are you painting people in your family who weren't famous but deserve to be famous? There's a lot of ways to do it. Doesn't have to be like decolonizing, right? But kind of like, what are you doing through your art? Bringing attention to something, right? Maybe you're painting fish with 3 eyes, so you're bringing attention to pollution type of thing. Sorry to be flip if you do that. Or again, we might be having a kind of work where we're staging workshops, we're working to build community, we're working to change minds and policies or heal the planet in some way. If we're doing if you're doing, an event where you're picking up straws together, that type of thing. So that goes more into the why. So in crafting your pitch, you guessed it, it's the ABC method where you're going to take segments from A, B, and C individually or in combination, right? Because A might be enough for your whole pitch. A and B might be enough for your whole pitch, and so on. And again, this is a menu of things that you can draw on that will work for you. So we're going to think about using the process of rehearsed improvisation, right? Because if you go watch an improv show, they have actually rehearsed pieces of that, right? So that's what you're going to think about doing, because if you go to any expert in public speaking, they're going to tell you that one of the main ways to reduce anxiety is to practice your material. Practice it over and over until you can just say it. Practice it in the mirror, practice it when you're taking a walk, practice it with your friends. Just do it. I know it's awkward, but that's the only way to get better, as with any sport or exercise. But where were we? Oh, yes. Practice distinct versions, right? So you might have different kinds of elevator rides, the short ride and the longer ride up to the 100th floor. You might be in the elevator with someone who works in a gallery and is in your art space, or it might be a random stranger or someone who collects. So you might want to be a little more general, right? So we're always, as we are in our writing, trying to be super generous with language so that we can say things in a language that won't kind of keep people out. Try not to recite. At the beginning, you will be reciting, because it's just like you have to break down any movement in dance or something like that. But you're going to try and sound conversational and authentic, right? That's the goal in the long term. And I just said this, be generous with language, instead of thinking about, my work interrogates the, dissolution of the picture plate type of thing, which is a thing, I think. Now, this comes up in writing too. Be believable. I'm not a big lover of the word unique because I think it's misused so much. And, when you're using these things and you're saying this artist is breaking the boundaries between photography and sculpture as never before, you can say it, right? No one's going to stop you from saying it or writing it, but whether it's believable to the listener is another story, right? Because again, you're doing this, say that you have you get a gallery, the dealer is going to have to be able to say that to the clients and the press is going to have to be able to write it and explain it, right? So what we're going to come to in a minute is how to do the examples. So it's the idea that you're somehow, yes, you want to say you're distinctive and focus on your personal originality, but it's not necessarily necessary to say, use these kind of superlative qualities about how fabulous you are. Use emotional intelligence. So what's going to happen in the elevator, and this will happen in the interview I'll talk about in a minute, is that once you get your pitch out, you're going to want so much to keep going. Don't do it. Pause. Wait, stop. Okay. Now we must observe our listener reaction using emotional intelligence. For example, back in the day when I was a reporter, I would have a reporter's notepad, look kind of like this, and I would write. And sometimes they would go on and I would pick up the pen. There's two kinds of people. There's the person that stops when they see you pick up the pen. That's emotional intelligence. And there's the kind that just keeps going, right? So if I'm not writing it down, what use is it for me? And I'm there doing my job, which we're going to come to. So we want to wait, right? We want to leave space for questions. It's going to be so much easier to answer once we know how to direct our question, right? And we want to also, maybe ask, if not in a panel discussion, but if you're meeting someone in person, we got to switch it back, even if we don't care, and ask them what they do. I know we're not interested. No, I'm just kidding. All right, so now say that you're in a panel discussion or a media interview. It's basically going to be a series of elevator pitches that you can practice ahead of time. So the first thing you're going to do, whether it's a moderator or a journalist, is recon. Look them up. What do they focus on, right? Are they someone who focuses on feminist issues, or are they do they love to write about abstraction and color? Figure it out. Connect with them on social. Now, this is not so you can meet them and say, I read all of your articles and you're a genius. This is just for your own insight, right? We're not flexing this recon. It's just normal. This is just so we can see what their perspective, method, familiarity with certain subjects or cultures is. And some people do ask the same questions over and over again because that's what people want to know, right? Don't expect them to know about yours, right? People may not have prepped. That's why you got to have all your press packages with your blurbs and your images, because that's what they're going to look at. What's the first thing they're going to look at if they don't know, right? Your social and your website. So that's what we were doing in the other classes. Then you're going to think about how can you identify 5 main talking points, right? Concise summaries of the essential information you need to share. That's going to be who you are, what you do, if you have a show or a project, or an idea for a project. You're going to think about creating an elevator pitch for each one. Now, when you identify the main talking points of your project, right, and too many of them revolve around one process, again, about research, if it's like about, a cultural critique and a critique of, consumerism, and also a critique of capital, sorry to be flip, but we do see this, right? Then you want to recalibrate because you want to have something of the mean, who are you? What do you make? What does it look like? What's it about, right? You want to have a balanced list in your elevator pitch of the 5 main talking points. And again, this is about not saying everything. We have to edit it for them. Otherwise, they'll be confused. Prepare specific examples to prove each point. This is super important. If you say my work is absurdist, now say that in a review, someone said playfully absurd. You could have that on your website and that would be like the receipt. See, this person said that. But, if you're in the elevator pitch or if you're in an interview and they say, my work, how's your work absurd? You can't say, well, Absurdism Monthly said it was playfully absurd, right? You have to kind of say, well, my figures have giant heads, or the landscapes are funny, or the colors, or, whatever makes your work or absurd, right? We want to have specific examples, and that can be challenging, but you can really think of it ahead of time by having an annoying person behind you in your head saying why or like what. So you can be ready with details of your artwork or your project that can convey these main themes. And again, we don't want to take it sideways in a way. And if you've mentioned the main themes, then the details should kind of play into that, right? Because again, we have plenty to say without adding new subject matter in at this time. And again, I say this because it's tempting, because the work can be about so many things. But if you start out with climate change and end up with feminism, I'm not saying that they're not connected, but it becomes diluted in terms of connecting your ideas with the object that you're making, or installation, whatever. And then whether you're in a panel discussion, a media interview, or a social encounter at a party where you don't know the people, always let the person asking the questions, well, especially the first two, I don't know about the party, let the questioner drive the conversation. They have a job to do. So you do want to keep the answer short and on point. And as I said, breathe and pause. Don't feel the need to fill quiet moments necessarily, right? This is one of the main points, because sometimes what happens is that, someone they'll give the elevator pitch, and then someone will say, how do you do it? And then we get, 10 minutes. So we don't want to do that because the elevator went up to like Mars, type of thing. So in the end, I left so much time for questions and flash session. I just want to say, building your career never stops, right? Because it's the end of the whole series in a way. So even though I gave you all of these different things to do in these 3 different classes, it's cool. It's a menu. Not everything has to be done or done right away, or, you don't have to redo your website and redo your Instagram and your profile, but these are ideas that will help you, in this kind of skills that will help you, hopefully, no matter what comes up. So my concept is to do what works for you, right? Hopefully using, being empowered by this, and always be your best self in public. That would be the final thing I would say. And then I just wanted to shout out to my Instagram to follow, to keep in touch. And also you can sign up for my mailing list on my website. And I will be offering some group coaching sessions coming up for these kind of classes where people want to redo, for example, their artist statement and then get some feedback. And in a couple of weeks, the Arts Council will be sending out a discount code with ways to sign up on that. So look forward to that. So with that, I'm going to come out of here. And now, guess what? It's time for Q&A.
All right, thanks, Robin. Just a reminder to everyone, if you do have a question, feel free to drop it into the Q&A box there. We'll do our best to get to them. This seems like it has been very, very thorough, Robin. We don't have a ton of questions, which means more time for practicing, which is super exciting. But I think last call for questions. If anyone pops in there in the last minute, we can kind of incorporate it. Sure, we can ask after the practice if there's anything hanging out there. But yeah, we might as well dive right on into to the practicing. Robin, do you want to kind of explain how you want to run this?
Yes, I like to do play acting and we pretend that we get in an elevator. So first I say ding, ding, and and that breaks the ice. And then I say, "Hi, I'm Robin. Who are you?" And then the person will say, "Hi, I'm so and so from this place, and I make cups with tea in them for my art." I hope if in case you do that, no shade. So and then I might give some pointers. Oh, like, oh, you focus so much on your process. Maybe we don't know what you make yet type of thing. And that's what it'll be. Super easy and mellow. Thank you for whoever goes first.
All right, speaking of whoever goes first, do we have any brave souls who want to volunteer, who want to test it out? This is a safe space. We will be very welcoming, very warm, non-judgmental. It's a great opportunity to be able to practice with the expert here. If you would like to volunteer, do a little hand raise, and I will look and see if you see someone. Oh, let's see. Na, is that how we say your name? I'm going to go ahead and ask you to unmute if you want to come on here and do your pitch. Oh, wait, you're still muted. Hold on. Oh, still muted. Hang on there for a minute. Are you able to unmute? Okay, well, we try and figure that out. Let's see. Oh, Lucy. Are you able to unmute,
Yes.
Lucy?
Can you hear me?
Hi, Lucy. Thanks so much for being so brave and willing to volunteer. Go for it.
Okay.
Wait, I have to say ding.
I was just gonna say I was waiting for the ding.
Okay. Ding. Hi. Robin. Who are you?
Hi, I'm Lucy Ginther. I'm the director of the Mason Symphony Orchestra. And we make music and we connect with the community through the spring, April 26th. Wait, hang on. I've not thought this through. April 26th, we have our masterpiece concert. It's Masterworks. Oh, shoot. I can't think of the right words. See, now I'm under pressure. What's next?
You're like, what did you say you do there? What is it?
Thank you. I'm going to start over if that's okay.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Lucy Ginther. I'm the director of the Mason Symphony Orchestra. It's a regional professional orchestra. Thank you. And we provide quality music experiences for our community and educational outreach.
Okay, so that's interesting. And you got the main points out. This is what I'm just kind of curious. Is it an orchestra? Does it have a kind of base? Does it have what do you call it? A venue where it usually plays, or it's kind of an itinerant orchestra?
At this point, we are itinerant. I'm on the Arts Council and we are building a performing arts center, but we don't have it yet.
Okay, that's interesting. So let's just start with this idea of it being an orchestra. Now, does that mean you do classical music?
I do everything. So this is our fourth season, and I have kind of a base. Our functional anchor concert is the Christmas in Mason Festival concert each early December. And then I do a pops concert in February around Valentine's Day, but not on Super Bowl weekend, please. And I'm doing a film concert next February. I've done Hollywood to Bollywood. Um, Things like this. And then the spring is our Masterworks program. I'm doing greatest classical hits, Scheherazade, Bolero.
All right, so that's interesting. Now, just to tear it apart, no, just kidding. Um,
Oh, please do.
all right, so what happens is when one says orchestra, I'm immediately in what kind of music, all right, as the listener. Now, what you want to do, hold on, is find a way to say that before the elevator goes up through the roof of the building. So in other words, I mean, I don't know that the dates in the Super Bowl is quite in the convo yet, just for the point of the exercise, is not a critique, but a way to say, okay, like what are the basic things that someone wants to know? What kind of orchestra is it? Okay, you play classical and contemporary. Well, that sounds to me as kind of, or whatever permutation of that is, because I just crunched it. But that's kind of important, right? That the audience wants to know that. And then on top of it, the fact that you're doing the favorites, music's not my field, but still there's a sense of, is it, or like if you're talking about theater, is it like Shakespeare wearing contemporary outfits or olden time outfits? So if you're coming in with Bolero, are these like through the lens? I don't know, maybe it's nothing, but I'm saying like in order to situate yourself, like why someone should hire you, we have we have what you're doing. And then I feel like there does need to be some kind of stylistic approach before you get to the idea that you're doing your masterworks, right? Just to kind of like get people in there. And with what you're doing, it really depends on who you're talking to. But before you're selling the concert, it sounds like you want to sell the entity in itself. And is it made up of people who, I'm just making this up, are they
Yeah,
professional musicians? Are they former students? Are they like, you know what I mean? Is it kind of like,
exactly. So saying it's a professional orchestra does not tell you who the people are, that it is made up of professional musicians. I need to talk about that. Our
I
competition
mean,
winner.
I would situate it somehow, right? Like,
Okay.
maybe you don't need to say professional musicians, but just like situated somehow in the identity, right? And the other thing I would say is that what happens is, not that it's not quality, like I'm not saying it's not quality, but the words not helping you. In other words, those words that are like
Ah,
brilliant and unique they're not doing the heavy lifting of really any kind of description of this kind of like cool, fun orchestra that traverses
right.
generational appeal. That's what we're trying to get. Like, oh, you do the old stuff and the new stuff. Oh, can I bring my kids? I mean,
Yeah. Okay. I understand in principle. How do I do that?
you have to practice it.
Okay.
All right.
Old stuff. So I talk about the old stuff and the new stuff we do.
You should think about finding ways to come in literally and say the main thing, the main qualities of it, the essential qualities that unite everything together.
Okay. Thank you. That's very helpful.
Awesome. Okay. Who wants to go next after that? Oh, Katie's doing that. Cool.
I think, oh, no, you want to try and see if we can get you unmuted this time?
To unmute.
There you go.
Okay. Okay.
We have to
Well,
wait for Robin to say ding. We're in the elevator. Hold on just a minute.
right. That's right. That's right. I
Let's
have
start
to
from the
be
top.
invited by the elevator.
All right, here we go.
Hi, I'm Robin. Who are you?
Hi, I'm Nancy Schuler. I'm a professional full-time artist. And do I wait for you to ask some more?
Now you can keep going now.
Oh, okay. I'm a professional full-time artist, and I specialize. I like oil paints, and I like a lot of color. And I've exhibited at the Dayton Art Institute, and I'm looking forward to a show in Manhattan this fall. And I just love to just share my art with the world.
That's good. That sounds very authentic. Now, when we're talking about, you were like, it was kind of funny because you started a strong, professional full-time painter, and then you said, I like oil paints. And it's like, does that mean you
Kind
paint
of a
with oil paint? I mean, I'm just teasing. But
good.
so I just want to think about a little more active language. Now, just to break
Okay.
down painting, again, there's a lot of boundary crossing painting, but in general, we have usually some kind of abstraction or figuration or work. Not
Ah.
a lot of people do both. Don't DM me. But I'm saying
Mhm.
that if your work is about color, right? First of all,
Mhm.
it's abstract or representational. There you go. Is it geometric abstraction? Is it biomorphic abstraction?
Ah.
Right? Are you painting interiors, landscape, people? So that's one way, or maybe it's an example. And then when you're talking about color, we have different, some paintings have wintry colors and some have tropical colors and some have pop colors. So we start to think about, again, you don't have to sound like a beat poem, like I make, tangerine dream colored, peppermint paintings. Don't say that. That's just weird.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Uh-huh.
so you
Yeah,
don't
maybe I could do it. Maybe keep the energy going. Keep the energy going, not just like I paint an oil paint. But like I say, well, what I like to do is create
make.
con
Right. What about, I
oh,
don't care if you like it or not. I'm going to assume that you like it as the listener. I do care.
okay.
That was not well said. I do.
Okay.
Point is, I'm going to assume that you like doing it. All right. I'm just giving.
Hmm.
So I just think about this. It's not wrong to say it the way you did it because it does,
Okay.
but try and just get right into like, I make paintings that do this. I paint landscapes. I paint people. You know what I mean? Like I'm painting and I'm
Oh.
using oil to paint in the tradition of the old masters, but with new subjects. Or, I'm painting a mountain that I grew up near, or, or
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
or water or the effect of water, all of that. Like, what is the subject of the work a little bit?
Okay. Okay. I travel around the country. I've lived around the country, and different atmospheres inspire me. And so, what I do is I create design concepts that incorporate color relationships using warm and cool colors, and that convey the atmosphere.
Very good. Now, once you've gotten that far, it's going to come again, if you can possibly narrow down the types of places, are you going to urban places, are you going to rural places? Those kind of things help a lot, right?
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
We're getting close with the color, but I'm still not clear if you're painting, abstractions or like how abstract they are.
Okay.
So you might, begin to say from my observation in my studio, I turn it into something else type of thing. But it's always about
Mhm.
getting to the result a little bit so that people
Result.
object is, even though I said do the process, we still want to know
Yeah.
what paintings, right?
Yes, yes. So, living in the San Francisco Bay Area, I was around the ocean, the mountains, cityscapes.
That's what,
I want to convey the atmosphere of the smell of the air, the feel of the breeze, in painterly expressionistic strokes, but that have underlying design elements incorporated in them.
okay, that's interesting. Now, this is just to torture you further. Once you're painting the ocean and the atmosphere on the ocean, then annoying Robin is going to be like, are you painting the ocean when it's tranquil or in a storm? Right? Because you can be, you can be like
Uh-huh.
like lots of storms, and you can also be expressed
Ah,
and designed with tranquil oceans and the time. Are you painting the ocean in the day or at night? These are things I ask every ocean and water painter.
ah,
Are you painting? Because when you're painting near water, you're painting the
mhm,
effects of the sky and the light and the air and the reflection, right? So,
mhm, mhm,
like we're not doing like photorealism here. We're painting atmospheric effects that change every time you look at it and with the time
mhm,
of day. So, and again, like you might say, like I paint the ocean when it's still and it's stormy. But if you choose one or the other, that right there is a kind of meaning in itself, right? Which one you're
ah,
so, talk like try and talk yourself through the way that you're trying to capture the atmospheric effects. And I think that would be an
mhm.
interesting thing.
What do you think about this? I'm a very random person, and that I'm very mercurial, and I have the full gamut of human emotion. So whatever emotion I'm feeling in that landscape, I it that landscape pulls it out of me. When I go to the wild West Coast, I love the wild rocks and the crashing waves. Um, but when I go to the Grand Tetons, I might see a very tranquil body of water, and it appeals to the tranquil part of me.
Okay, so what's happening here is that that's all fine for your artist statement.
Hmm.
This is like I see the mercurial in my horoscope, and I see the tree, and I'd feel this way. And I'm going to say it again with all due respect, like so
Hmm.
many artists at the beginning of what you said is a common thing. They're mercurial and they react to their atmosphere. So we have to kind of like, I'm not saying it's not true. I'm just saying
Hmm.
so many people that it's not that helpful in someone who wants to know what's in it for them. What's in it for them,
Uh,
how that process works in a painting that's beautiful, that makes you want to look at it,
hmm.
you want to move a little bit back from like your feelings and what you love, no offense.
yeah, yeah. But my
Into
audience.
the object that you're making. So that would
Mhm.
be my advice.
I see. Maybe it would maybe appeal to them, the audience. I need to have a little um, social intelligence. If I'm looking at an art, kind of like a hippie, uh, I would maybe appeal to that particular location of where I've been. Um, if I'm talking to a businessy person, um, maybe I would say, well, um, I make cityscapes that incorporate um, the places where people connect and are interacting, and through various color compositions that juxtapose to each other. Some are complementary, some are analogous, and
All
some
right.
are very conflicting.
I think you got to think about it for a while, right? Because
Okay.
because it doesn't just come out, but you want it to sound like
Mm-hmm.
conversation. And again, uh, just so that other people get a chance, right? Like you're painting building before, like, are you painting intersections with people in them or empty places like Hopper? This isn't for you to answer now, right? This is for you to marinate. So I think
Okay.
thinking about what they look like is going to get you there.
Okay. Look like. Okay. I'll give everybody else a chance now. But thank you so much for your time.
Or,
Thank you.
Thanks,
right.
Nancy. Thanks for being brave and being willing to learn. Next up, we have Christina. Christina looked like she wanted to go. And then, oh, I lost Darlene. You have your hand up, so we'll have you next. So we'll do Christina and then Darlene. And then if anyone else is interested, we might be able to squeeze one more in. So just let me know. Let me know in the chat, okay? All right, here we go. We're on the elevator ride. Robin's in the elevator with Christina, and
Ding. Hi, I'm Robin. Who are you?
Robin, my name is Christina, and I am a musician, specifically a pianist, but a teacher, and I write compositions. Um, Now I'm trying to get a publisher to publish my music that I've written.
Good. You got it out. Very good. All right. So that you did the first step. Now, annoying Robin, Robin's going to be like, what kind of music? Are they songs? Are they orchestras? Are they happy? Are they sad? Right? Like, but so it's fine to say that you're looking for a publisher, but we want to focus a little more on what you're trying to sell there.
Okay, I have written, I write mostly works for piano, but I've written for piano and voice and chamber combinations of string, piano, and winds. I've actually just had a premiere of my piano concerto last month. So, and you can listen to it on YouTube.
Oh, good for you. Okay, so right now you've made a concerto. All right, so we've already gotten more information. Now, again, when you're dealing with genres, like these are just suggestions of like of all the people that are creating concertos, like what is it about yours? It's kind of like the distinctive qualities. And again, when you're working with a more traditional format, you can come in and say like you're obviously, like you're a contemporary person, but it's kind of like some people are like, I am doing this in the most original way possible to tribute the founders, and the other, another might be like, as a contemporary person, I'm doing it this way.
Okay, there is a ton of great concerti already written for the piano, but mine focuses on the intermediate and lower, like advancing beginner, and because I find that there is a niche there, because there well there is music for the professionals, but mine have a pedagogical bent that also include theoretical concepts if they wanted to go into it.
Okay, that's really good stuff. According to me, that should come much sooner. Because
Okay.
original. So again, if that's, like in these conversations, depends like if you're next to someone at dinner or really in an elevator. But if that's the thing, because what you're filling a niche. Okay. Now, even someone who's not in music like, can understand what that means, and that they're pedagogical. So to me, that becomes very interesting. And not only that, but I think that's a conversation point that a lot of people could follow whatever industry and they're in. And it's, because it fills a niche. You just said that. So right there, that's what makes it different. That's the special thing that I would be starting with, right? And you could even be like more low key about trying to sell it, just like waiting and spend a little more time on this idea of what you've done. Like, you could be like, I am all these things, but right now I'm focusing on finishing this, these concertos for this particular purpose that you said. And I think that would be I think that's a great selling point.
The pedagogical and a niche. Okay.
Right now, you have to be able to explain. The niche sounds easier to explain to me, again, not being in the business, but the pedagogical, then they're going to be like, if they're anywhere in music, they're going to be like, how is it pedagogical? Right. So then you want to come in and be like,
pedagogical because it has teaching concepts, and it's not aimed at the highbrow learner already, but somebody who's still in midway or just trying to pick it up.
see, I think that's very good. So and then if they say, what are the teaching
Concepts.
concepts? You're training them in reading music, in playing whatever, again.
Theoretical.
Okay, so break it down a little bit,
Break it down. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Welcome, but you're on the way. You have a good concept.
I have a question. Does telling them that you're on YouTube work or no?
I don't know that people are going to run to YouTube unless you've already interested them in you. I think that's someone
okay.
might say, and it's the same for visual artists. They might be, do you have a website? Do you have an Instagram? And then you might say I'm on YouTube. But if you're just meeting someone for the first time, I'm not sure I would.
Okay.
I would spend most of my energy trying to make them super interested.
Okay. Thank you, Robin.
All right. Thanks, Christina. Fantastic. Good luck. So next up, we're gonna do Darlene, and then we have time probably, what do you think, for one more after Darlene, Robin? Okay, so next up, the next person who had their hand up was Kemi. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I apologize if I'm not. And so we'll go Darlene first and then Kemi. So Darlene, thanks for being brave here. You're in the elevator with Robin and go.
Hi, I'm Robin. Who are you?
Hi, Robin. I'm Darlene Yeager Torian. So happy to meet you.
You.
I'm an artist and I'm working on an encaustic project right now. Have you heard of Carl Sagan?
Yes.
Yes, he's as you know, a scientist and a writer. Well, he wrote an article called "The Pale Blue Dot," and that was based on something that happened in 1990. In 1990, Voyager 1 was about to leave our solar system. So NASA remotely powered up all the onboard cameras, turned them towards Earth, and took one last picture. It took 2 months for all that to get back to Earth, but when they did, there, suspended in a beam of light, was a minuscule light blue dot. And that was Earth, our planet. And based on that, Carl Sagan wrote an article called "The Pale Blue Dot." When I read that, I was really inspired by what he said. And one of the things he did say was that we need to cherish.
Hey, Darlene, I'm sorry. I am going to stop you right here. I want to know desperately how this gets back to what the encaustic. So I,
Okay.
for the sake of the class, because this was just that the assignment is not the backstory. The assignment is 15 to 30 seconds of what you do. So
Okay.
just for the sake of time, without, with all due respect, what do you make from one encaustic that has to do with what you just told us?
Okay, so each work that I'm making is an interpretation of the catastrophic events that are happening now on our planet. And it's the only planet known to sustain life.
Okay, now this is what I would say. I feel like people know the last thing you said, with all due respect. So again, like I feel like it's a very careful thing when we're dealing with things about climate change and the planet to be, to have the impulse to be like, the atmosphere, and more trees every year, but we're either talking to people that agree with us or we're not going to convince them by saying that. So again, there has to be a reason that people are going to want to look at one person's art. And it's not because the planet is dying or your interest in Carl Sagan. It's going to be how those encaustics look. And if it's a kind of, terrible beauty, again, does it look like a kind of sublime? Does it look like the apocalypse? Like, I think you have to kind of like resist the story of the dot, because I don't think it works in the context of what we're doing here, and focus. Encaustic is such a great material. That's such a, not that many people are working in it. So I'm going back to like, are they wall works, table works? What do they look like? What are the color? You know what I mean? Like, and kind of like, and you can say inspiration in Carl Sagan, but I think again, from time, like maybe not asking the person if they heard of Carl Sagan, because again, maybe at a dinner table, it's another story, but for what we're doing, just to like get it out there and get it right there, if that makes sense.
So I was thinking that we would want to engage the person in our conversation, and you're saying, no, not stopping and taking time for that. Just go to the bottom line pretty
See,
quickly.
we're doing an elevator pitch now. We're doing an introduction, right? So I'm not saying don't engage people in conversation, but for what we're doing now, it's kind of like, who are you and what do you do? And I don't find that saying, did you ever hear of, I think Carl's like it's a question like, for maybe like a longer conversation, at a dinner table or something. The backstory, but just that's not, particularly what this project is right now. So I think you might want to think about that. I do see, I know that we were trying to get another person in. So I think you're on the way, Darlene, but kind of like think more about the object than the backstory.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Cool. I also see Brenda up there. Katie.
Yeah, so maybe we can try and get the last two. Maybe we can try and squeeze two in quickly, if people are willing to wait.
Do it, guys.
Yeah, let's do it quickly. So, so Kemi, are you around? Are you able to turn your camera on and unmute? Oh, there you are. Hello. Okay, thanks so much for being willing to share. You're in the elevator with Robin. You got your 15 to 30-second pitch ready, and here we go.
Hi, I'm Robin. Who are you?
Hi, nice to meet you. My name is Kemi Layeni. I'm an artist, filmmaker, and actor, and former teacher. And I'm currently a second-year MFA candidate at NYU Tisch. I make films shot on film that are dark comedies and dramedies that center stories from the diaspora, specifically Black girls and women, and the Virginia version of the South.
Wow, that was high level. That was very, very good. But that's how you do it, all right? You write it down. Sorry for making you example. That's how you do it. No, this is a good way to you write down the concepts and then you said it like it was the spoke. I mean, again, you read off the paper now, but that sounds like something you could totally practice and get it in shape. And every time I was about to say like what, you were there with you know, more details about the dark comedies and so on. And really the only thing I can say is that I mean, you kind of had it in there unless you begin to situate the comedies into what's happening with them in terms of, I don't, you know, is it domestic or romance or whatever, or, you know, and then it kind of like, the only other thing is that, and I always say when you're shooting on film and photography and video to say that, so that I also did appreciate that. But then it wasn't really clear, and I'm just saying this to, you know, think of something. The concept that you're shooting on film didn't seem to, like, I didn't quite understand how formally and I know we were dealing with 30 seconds, but how this idea of the quality of film with all of the issues it brings, like, what does that have to do with the content of the comedies? And I'm sure there's a way that you might consider that form and content concept, just as like a one point.
Okay. No, that's really helpful.
And where you're shooting, which you didn't, like where they're set, like where you shoot with your film. So that's what I would say. But otherwise, awesome.
Thank you.
Cool. Okay.
Very nice job, Kemi. Thanks so much for sharing. And we'll have time for one more if everyone's willing to hang in. Brenda, are you still there? Thanks for being patient. We'll go ahead and get yourself ready. We're going to be in the elevator with Robin, 15 to 30 seconds. And here we go.
Hi, I'm Robin. Who are you? I think Brenda's muted.
Oh,
There's-
hi. There, I'm here.
Hi.
Can we try again?
Yes. Ding. Hi, I'm Robin. Who are you?
Hi, I'm Brenda. I'm a writer. My passion is poetry, and I love to connect with others through words, and I love to help inspire them to be creative. I'm going to be attending a book fair in Chillicothe on April the 5th to sign my latest book, Let Go and Trust God, Let Him Take the Wheel. And I'm currently working on another book, a collection of poems based on narcissism.
Wow, that's very good too. I feel like we might be able to think about the same way we do with painting, kind of honing in a little bit on what kind of poetry. If it's like, you know, prose poems, or is it, you know, kind of more traditional, experimental? Because poetry, just like art, there's a feeling, it makes you feel a way when you read it. Well, it is art, but you know what I'm saying. Literary is
I love free verse, so.
there you go. So I think that right even there saying free verse is good. Then we got to the subject matter a little bit through the title, and then in the end you said narcissisms, but I almost wonder if you could, like, I would be more interested to know what you write than before you were going to the fair or the event to promote it. So kind of like lean into the free verse and the subject matter first, and then get to the part about that, because most people that you meet, unless they're at that event, it might not be, you know, a great use of your time. But the idea that you have your second book coming out is really good. So I would, you know, just like lead into that.
Okay. So I should tell them exactly what kind of poems I write and like where I inspire people to be creative. I have a series that I write with prompts, which is All different kinds, word prompts, video prompts,
Yeah, you should
half
say
sentence prompts.
that's real, that you should totally say that. All right. That's like what we just heard, from Christina, like this idea of that you're not only a creator, but you have a service that you're offering, which is great for marketing. So I'm
Okay.
glad that we got to talk about that. 3 o'clock. How did it happen?
Yeah. Time flies. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Great, it does fly. Thank you so much. Thanks, Brenda. Thanks to everyone who volunteered and took a chance at practicing their elevator pitches. This was super helpful to hear it done live and in real time. So thank you so much to everyone for taking the time to tune in today. Robin, thank you. This has been amazing. I am so sad that this series is coming to an end. If anyone missed the first two sessions that Robin did on Instagram or crafting your bio and artist statement, those are available on our YouTube channel. For everyone who signed up for today's session or any of the other sessions, you'll receive an email early next week with links to those 2 sessions, plus the recording from today. And a link to Robin's website and some other good stuff that she mentioned. So thank you so much for taking the time. Hope you can get out there and feel confident in talking about yourself and selling yourself. Robin, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
No, I think that's it. Just practice and go out there and, be proud. You're great.
Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Bye, everyone. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.